So if you have a question as I'm going through, please just pop on the mic because I don't have my two screens, so I can't really juggle the chat. Um, so the goal today, I usually teach AI ethics, and Poynter has a ton of really good AI ethics work. I co-wrote the AI ethics guidelines that we have. But Todd thought it would be good for me to just run through some of the tools that I've been using and the journalists have been using. Just give you a really quick taste of three kind of big types of tools that you can play around with. I'm not going to go very in depth because we don't have a ton of time, so I might move pretty quickly, but I'll share all my slides and Pointer has like a ton of resources on this stuff that I will share out afterwards as well. So a little bit more about me. Actually, my day job has always been the director of MediaWise, which is Pointer's media literacy program. But a few years ago, I started experimenting with AI, and now I'm on faculty here. I oversee our AI Innovation Lab, which we just launched and are looking for funding for. So if you would like to throw us a few pennies, please let me know. And I spent my reporting career in weekly news. So I was a I worked for a network of weekly news sites all across Florida, where I did everything from like government reporting to real estate and development. I was eventually a digital editor, a video guy. I kind of go where the technology goes. So, like, I was shooting video during the pivot to video era. I was writing two newsletters a day when newsletters were all the rage, which they still are. In this business, what's old is always new again. I also have six chickens, two dogs, and a horse named Magic Mike. So my journey with AI began when ChatGPT launched. The first thing I did, because I teach media literacy, is created a bunch of fake news websites and got them online very quickly. And so I freaked everyone out here at Pointer, but I also recognized that like these AI tools were really good at analyzing and creating a lot of content. I hate the word content, but I'll be using it, so I apologize in advance. And so Poynter, being the home of the Craig Newmark Center for Ethics and Leadership, we realized that we needed to put some guardrails in place around AI use. And so we held a couple of summits on AI ethics and journalism in 24 and 25. We had about 100 newsroom leaders from the big guys, from local news. We've always had a few academics there. Like, you'll see, if you're familiar with Ben Toft's work, you'll see him on the left there. And we came up with some guidelines to help newsrooms establish AI ethics policies and start using AI themselves. The goal being, if you have really good, strong AI guidelines in place, then you are free to experiment and see all of the really cool things these tools can do. And so, Todd mentioned you all are AI familiar, so I'm not going to go too deeply in like how AI actually works. I'll just be kind of experimenting with some tools. But I like to start with, what if I had AI 10 years ago? So that was me 10 years ago, my first newspaper job with look at the old phone, look at the old MacBook. And so at this time, I was writing newsletters, I was editing the website, and covering politics too. And during the 2016 election, I thought it would be a fun idea to put together a little map of how neighborhoods, quote, neighborhoods voted to get some engagement going on the site. I was experimenting with data reporting, very basic stuff like using Tableau. And I created what is potentially one of the ugliest maps ever posted to a news website. It is something I would never publish again. And it took me a very long time between all of the things that I was doing. The tooltip, as you can see, incredibly ugly, but it ended up being the most read story in the history of that website. It was also the most engaged story. So all that time investment I put into it ended up paying off. So I went to the supervisor of elections website and I downloaded all of that old data from 2016. A little bit traumatic to look back on, but I forced myself to do it. And I thought, what if I had AI nowadays? And so this is ChatGPT, if you recognize it. And so I just downloaded all of that data, which is like there was like if you go back, there's like a PDF of the addresses of all of the voting precincts. There's a CSV or Excel file that has all of the vote totals, and I just sort of threw it all in, and I gave it a really like a two-sentence prompt: start analyzing this. I want to put together a map, and it started like right away. And in like 2 minutes, I had a static map that looked a lot better than what I had back in the day. Now, it still has a few issues. There's some missing data, obviously, as you can see. But I was absolutely blown away that it was able to do something that probably would have taken me like, I don't know, 2 days, but juggling all of my things very, very quickly. I asked it to create an interactive map, like make it so it's actually I can embed it on the site, and it spit out all this code so I can embed it. I did go to embed it, and it gave me a sort of blue blob that was about a half hour outside of our coverage area. So there is a lot of promise in these tools. They have a lot of really good opportunities that I'm going to show today, but also a lot of issues and problems. And anyone here who's been using or has had students using AI is very familiar with the issues. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. Really just want to demo the tools, how you can use them best. So these are the big ones. I don't know which ones you all have been using. ChatGPT is this the little like woven logo there. Um, every time I give this presentation, I feel like there's a new tool that has jumped in here. I'm going to look a little bit at like Claude and Gemini and Notebook LM and show you how I use those. But these are really all the big ones out there. And this is my current obsession, which is called Google Anti-Gravity. It's technically like a encoding platform that would be used by software engineers, but I'll show you how you can use it to start investigations, or your students can use it to start investigations, or learn how to code themselves. This is what the interface of ChatGPT looks like for those who haven't seen it. This was me. I broke I broke my foot last year, and it was during a hurricane, so I could get an X-ray, but I couldn't get into a doctor because nobody had any power, and so I just used ChatGPT to analyze my X-rays. Don't ever do that. You should not ever do that. So don't do that. But that's what the interface looks like. Um, yeah. So what are these tools actually good at? So I use them mostly, and they really, really excel at is summarizing research. I use them to catch up on all of the great misinformation research that I might miss. Um, I use it to write outlines based on the notes that I have. A lot of times I will just go walk my dog and just talk into Gemini and just if I'm working on a project or something like that, I will just give my thoughts for like 30 minutes while walking the dog and then say, summarize these notes, put them into an outline. Now, the key with these two are a lot of content is there and you're putting it into these programs. They're not starting from scratch. That is the key, is you don't really want these to be starting totally from scratch. A lot of news organizations are using them for SEO headlines and summaries. I use them for alt text. If there's any Blue Sky users here, on Blue Sky, alt text is crucial or you will get chewed out. And you can drop an image into these tools, ask for some alt text description of the image, and in a second, you will get that alt text. So if you are stuck, I also use these tools for brainstorming. Generally, what I'm doing a lot nowadays is like grant writing and applying for grants. Some of you may be familiar with how that all that fun stuff. So I find myself asking for new perspectives on a project that I might be pitching. I will use it to poke holes in a narrative that I'm writing about a grant to see, what am I missing in this? What else should I be asking? I've talked to young reporters who, like myself, when I was a young reporter, I would get stuck on utilities, and I had never reported on utilities my entire life. And then all of a sudden, I had to interview the head of a utility company about hurricane season. Um, so it's very useful for like drafting potential interview questions if your students are on a new beat and just getting started. Now, should never replace you coming up with your own questions, But looking back, it's really good to have a starting point, when you're on a new beat. And then what I'm seeing a lot of news organizations use this for is follow-up story ideas. So immediately after writing a story, figuring out what should be reported on next. And I'll sort of show I'll show what some of these actually look like in practice. But I just wanted to give you kind of a broad overview here. And then some more advanced use cases that, especially as academics, data scraping is like a huge part of what we do. Uh, these tools make it a lot easier than it used to be, and it's what I use. I literally scraped all of PolitiFact's entire archive over the last 2 nights, and that's what the data we're going to be working with, and with the help of AI. Um, Transcription and verification and claim matching against databases. I have been building tools for PolitiFact and the fact checkers there to do some of these more advanced things. Now, there are limitations, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. Inaccurate, they use data, they carry the biases of their training data, and they are boring. The CEO of The Onion, who was at our AI summit earlier this year, he famously always says AI cannot be funny and it can't be funny. So keeping all of these things in mind as you're using these tools is really important. Now, again, academics, we love frameworks, don't we? So this is I'll share these slides afterwards, but when I'm thinking about potential use cases for I think about it in this matrix. And generally, I find really, really strong support for AI use when it's something that's boring and routine that I don't want to do, like gathering 26,000 fact checks from PolitiFact. And it relies and has access to existing documents or databases or a lot of stuff, research papers. In my example, I have an entire Django website of PolitiFact with tens of thousands of fact checks. I need to do an analysis. It's going to be boring and routine. I have AI do all that for me. Weak candidates for AI support are something that's like really highly engaging and that you like to do, and something that requires original reporting. This is like following an investigation or actually carrying out that interview with the head of the utility. That is something that cannot be done with AI. And what you'll kind of see and what you should be seeing is that AI is only going to augment reporters, and it will never be a replacement for reporters. So the first big thing that I've seen journalists using AI for is deep research. So deep research is a tool within all of the big AI tools, and it's literally a button. It's a button that just says deep research. And here's kind of what like the output looks like. So this was actually a training I was doing for the Post and Courier, and I was put myself in the position of a reporter who was starting a big project, talking about real estate activity in South Carolina. I don't even know where to start, but I'd love some data sources. I'd love some big ideas. And so I just go into ChatGPT. Actually, this one was Claude. I put in deep research and I just ask, you're an investigative reporter, put together a comprehensive report on real estate activity. And it sends out an agent that does dozens and dozens and dozens of Google searches and starts bringing together sources. Basically, something that would have taken me a day, it can do in like a few minutes. So let me actually show what this looks like in practice, so you can see. So I have this list of all of my prompts that I use. Are you all familiar with what a prompt is? I see some thumbs up, head nods.
Yeah.
These trainings are always hard because it's like we're all learning so fast. I mean, we're all trying to learn so fast. So I have this list of prompts that I'll be playing around with today, and you can see like I like to start my prompts with a role, and I always give the AI a role, as you can see here.
And
So
just a simple question, Alex. You're always typing these out ahead of time. My biggest mistake is I try and type them raw into Chat GPT and I screw it up. So you're pre-typing and then copy and pasting.
yeah, generally, I mean, sometimes I'll just kind of, if I'm just tooling around in there,
Yeah.
I will tool around. But this is I highly recommend keeping a prompt library. If you do something a lot, just keep a spreadsheet that has prompts like this one here. If you get a good prompt, you might as well use it over and over again. So this is I'm in St. Pete. We've had an influx of people moving in, and it seems like the politics have shifted here. And so, my wife works for the Tampa Bay Times, and I was really curious. What do you think is happening with our local politics with all these COVID transplants moving here? And so I put together this prompt basically asking for, election and voting patterns since 2020. And I've got my deep research to get started with research. It asks me all these questions. I'm not going to answer those yet, but just do it. Um, Got it. I'll dig in and starting research. And basically, what it's doing is, like I said, it's just doing a bunch of Google searches. So it's going to just start digging through the internet, finding good sources. So you can see it's already starting to its activity over here. So it's moving a little bit slow. Poynter's internet isn't the best here, so we might be struggling with that a little bit here. But as you can see, it wants to do something. The activity of this AI agent, which is doing all of these Google searches. It's pretty straightforward. It just is going to search for a bunch of keywords related to what we're doing here. So clearly, I need better internet here at Poynter. But in general, if you all do this, you will start seeing all of the sources to the right here of what it is going to be compiling. Now, the thing to watch out for is for some reason, these still don't have good controls against SEO, like SEO bait. So they might quote like SEO blogs or other non-academic sources. So you should really always ask for, good sources, ask for academic sources, ask for, government databases. So you can really prime the deep research. And obviously, I always just tell this to students if you're starting on a research project, you're not just going to want to throw everything into like ChatGPT, get your output, and then just send it to your professor. So keep an eye out for that. The sources are sort of 50-50 on deep research. But what I found is, especially like if I'm starting out, if I see a grant opportunity and I know nothing about the organization, if it's sort of a new-ish area or something, deep research can get me up to speed very, very quickly with good sources if I ask for those good sources. So next up, I'm going to go to organizing and summarizing. The biggest strengths, I think, of AI. And so I am going to show you a tool called Notebook LM. Is anyone here familiar with Notebook LM? And I see some. So we got some hands, some people. I can see your faces to the side here. So if you want to shake your head or give a thumbs up or um, no, I see some no's. This is about to change your life. I swear it's going to change your life. So Notebook LM, this is a free tool that, as you can see, I use it for all sorts of things. But it's basically at its most basic is it's a way to organize all of your notes and then ask questions of them. So let me just show you this example here, or this one here. So we held our summit on AI ethics and journalism. I had to organize it. So I was like running mics. I was making sure food was not cold, and I was expected to write a research report after it. So I didn't have time to take a lot of notes. I did have time to record a lot of the sessions. I had a lot of slides from the sessions. I had some notes from other people who had written notes. I had some PDFs that people had shared and put together. So, what this does is Notebook LM allows you to upload sources of all types. So here I have PDFs, I have slides, I have TXTs. You can now put sheets in here. It's integrated for Google Sheets.
Video
And then
links? Video links?
yeah, yes, video links, and I will show that in 1 second.
Wow.
Yeah, it's truly incredible. And I just said, give me some quick tips for a newsroom to put together their ethics policy. And so, based on all of this really, really cool stuff that I put together, 18 sources here, it gives me this answer. It gives me a really cool, I didn't even ask for this. It gives me some sort of like framework here for, the product side of things. And the best part about this is it's all sourcing your documents. It's not going to hallucinate. This thing is not going to hallucinate the way that it would. This is just has absolutely changed my life. So let me just show you another one, like in practice, how I might use this. So let's say I am living back in Sarasota County, where I used to live, and I am now dropping the 2025 and 2026 adopted budgets of Sarasota County in here. They are like 1,000 pages each. There's a lot of art in them. It took me a while to download them. So I'm dropping those in here. Uh, Now, what if I'm also curious about what they've been saying at meetings about this budget? And I want to keep all my stuff organized before I write something up. So this is Sarasota County's YouTube page. So let's find a budget one. This one is about stormwater, which Sarasota had some really serious stormwater issues that are addressed in the budget. So let's add a source. So you can add a YouTube video. So instead of me watching that whole YouTube video, the boring stormwater update, instead I've just added it to my list of sources here. Now I do want to apologize because again, my internet seems to be incredibly slow, so I don't think I can show you this actually in action. But if my internet was not slow, I could ask something like, what changed between 25 and 26, and how should I cover it? And it would, yeah, because it's still trying to digest all these documents. But if it did, it would give me some really good answers that are grounded in the data that I've given it, that PDF, everything that I've actually put into it. Now, people they think this is the coolest thing in the world because you can turn things into podcasts by asking for an audio overview. You can create video overviews, so you can see. I actually created a video overview. Well, it's again, my internet's kind of slow, but we've got a video overview of all of my notes and stuff from this. Um, so I use this for basically everything I do. If there is a new paper that comes out about like fact checking or misinformation, I will throw it in here, create a podcast, and go walk my dog. Now that's deranged. I understand that sounds deranged, and it would have been deranged like a year ago. I would have told you that is the dumbest thing. Why are you doing that? I swear to you, I swear by it now. Like a 15-minute walk with my Shiba, and I'm able to quickly kind of digest the idea behind it, like a new research paper that I can then dive into and actually report out if I want to do something on it.
Got a
Uh,
Alex question.
yeah.
Only a podcast style? Does it just give you direct text if you just want to hear the content in a one single voice as opposed to the two people chatter
So
podcast?
I haven't done I've only done the two-person chatter, but I swear they add new features to this all the time, so I can edit this. Let's see. Thoughtful debate, expert review. So it looks like there are, so I wonder if the brief or critique might be just one person.
Okay.
So I'd have to experiment with that. But this is, I mean, you can create flashcards. If I was a student, like going back when I did economics in college, I would have like killed for this. In the hands of a good student or academic, this is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And I use it all the time. It's my favorite tool. I used to think it was not the sexiest of the AI tools because it really is just summarizing documents at its core, but it has made my life so much easier in so many ways. So I highly recommend Notebook LM. It's free. Just play around with it and see what you can get out of it. I mean, it'll generate a slide deck. Like if you have to give a presentation or something, and it's something you're new to working on, it will generate a pretty good slide deck based on that. And they just keep packing features in. So use it now while it's free. Also, I always get, I always hesitate when Google rolls something out, waiting for them to make us pay for it. So that's organizing and summarizing documents. Um, I'll end with content creation. And again, I'm going to move kind of quick because I want to leave time for questions. But the big promise for me of AI, is a little bit on the sexier side, out of the internal AI use, and that's actual content creation. Again, sorry for the word content. And it's the idea of taking something you already have, whether that is a data set, whether that is a research paper, whether that is an article that your student newsroom is working on, and making it relevant for more people, putting it into a format for more people, turning it into a vertical video, turning it into a quick FAQ, turning it into a news quiz, which I'll show you. And it's the idea of liquid content. I'm not sure if you've heard this term before, but it's now being thrown around by it's all the news tech guys, which we might have news tech guys here, but the news tech guys have been using this phrase to describe kind of the future of our workflow is liquid content, which kind of like that. So let's go to some data. Let me show you a little bit of liquid content here. So I mentioned first, I will apologize. This is just a test. Sorry. Um, I am going to work with a data set of a bunch of fact checks from PolitiFact. So basically, right now, I'm trying to improve a chatbot that I built for PolitiFact reporters. But we're going to just pretend we're writing an article about the 2010 midterms. And to do that, I downloaded all of the PolitiFact fact checks from around that time period. So I have this data set that has basically every PolitiFact fact check in it from like it's basically from 7 to 11. So I kind of like, can look forward and backward from that election. So let's see. Let's just start with some basic visualization. So we'll try Claude now. Claude is actually my favorite of the AI tools, but all of these tools basically do the same thing right now. So I've got my PolitiFact. It says it goes back to 95, but PolitiFact was not founded then. It's got, all of this stuff in it. Now you're gonna freeze on me. Come on, Claude. I love these live demos. You never know what you're going to get. Okay. So let's drop our prompt in here. Okay. Let's try Google then. So let's try Google's Gemini. Let's see if it's a little bit faster here. So I have my PolitiFact data set. I have a prompt that's basically asking, "Hey, give me some visualizations on this. Show me some cool things I can create with this." I've got the data set here. Let's see what we got. Um, so this is a massive data set. It's like 15, well, I guess not massive in academic terms, but it's like 15 megabytes. So it might take a minute here, but it's basically going to try to come up with some visualization and story angles
So I,
that
I'm going to miss you dragged the CSV into Gemini.
yes. So
Okay.
I actually put it in earlier right before I started
Okay.
because I knew we were gonna have internet problems. So uh and as you can see, it's literally already starting the analysis here. It's showing it on the side here and let's see what it gave me. Hold on. Let me close this window here. So let's see. I've got 1,000 fact checks. It tells me, some chart proposals. Let's give a bar chart of overall fact check verdicts. That's not too bad. The story is what's the overall balance of truthfulness? That's kind of a boring story idea. Um, are political statements becoming more or less truthful as time progresses? That's quite interesting. I mean, it's based on PolitiFact, so maybe not the most academically rigorous. Which sources are checked most often, and what is their truth record? That could actually be a really interesting one. So let's again look at our canvas to see if it gave us any images. Uh, Show me the charts. Let's see. Oh my goodness. So it loves to do this thing where it pretends that it doesn't know how to do the thing that I'm asking it to do. But it absolutely does know how to create charts. Uh, I know you can create this chart. So just do it. And let's see if it will create that. Okay,
Anything on
so
that?
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, okay. All right, so it seems to have given me the code here, but not it's not actually showing me the visualization, which it literally did just an hour ago when I tested this. So that's the thing about these large language models. Uh, you never know what you're going to get out of them, and that is like a huge issue with them. So this worked for me literally the last time I tried it, but it is for some reason not working for me right now. But generally, what it should have done is showed me a bar chart and a few other different charts, and then I could have picked one that I wanted to follow up on a story. But let's see. Let's try another one. Let's see. Let's see if we can get some let's try follow up story. So one way these are really useful is for follow up stories. If you got a breaking news story like here, Governor DeSantis in Florida announced a new AI Bill of Rights. Super interesting. We'll see how that's going to put him at odds with Silicon Valley and the current administration. So let's drop that in here and we'll give it the prompt. I'm going to give it just a really basic prompt. You are a Tampa Bay Times reporter. Give me 5 follow up story ideas.
Does the prompt always have to be above the text?
Yes, generally. I mean, it sometimes can recognize where you're asking the question. These are getting a lot smarter than they used to be. But that's generally the way I do it. So let's see. There's a lot of different issues. You can see it's thinking, and you actually watch its thinking. So it's considering all of these things. It's browsing for lots of different proposals. Um, Searching the web. This is something these large language models didn't used to be able to do. They were not able to search the web in the past. And it is thinking, thinking, thinking. Let's just ask it to answer now. Just answer now. Give me what you got. Here are 5 follow-up story ideas. So Florida's next culture war, AI therapy, chatbots, and parental control. That would in where I am, Pinellas County, that would be a barn burner of a story. That would light up for sure. Anti-China policy within the policy, there's something about not using Chinese built AI. So what does that do here? You could follow that up with like visa stories and things like that. To the basic, how would this change daily life in Florida? So this is the brainstorm in practice, and how quick it could come up with these follow up story ideas. Let's go back to Google and see if it's going to give me. Uh, Hold on. Let's see if it'll generate an image. Um, It really does not want to do it. I apologize. I assure you that it can absolutely do this, and I have watched it do it in practice. So these are like so we've got Notebook LM, which is a really grounded large language model that is based on your documents that is absolutely wonderful and amazing. You have things like Gemini and ChatGPT, which are sort of these general chatbots that will answer questions on those story angles. They will, under better circumstances than this afternoon, give you visualizations and other story angles based on data and create images, all of that kind of fun stuff that I can't show in the time period we have. But I did want
Question,
to,
Alex.
yeah,
Question,
go
Alex.
ahead.
Gemini can't do what LM does, but LM can do what Gemini does just within the Google space. Like
Uh, uh, Gemini, sorry, can you repeat that?
Gemini can do what LM can't do what LM can't do all that LM does, but LM can do all that Gemini does.
Not quite. So
All right.
Notebook LM isn't gonna answer your question when I say generate an image of, something from this research
All right.
paper. It's not going to do that.
All right.
Gemini would do that. Now, Gemini, you would have to absolutely torture to create a slide deck, to create podcast, like to do anything that Notebook LM does. You could torture it into doing that,
Okay.
but it's all built into Notebook LM, which is
All right.
great.
Okay. See.
So the last tool I want to show is called Google Anti-Gravity, and I mentioned it is very nerdy. It's an development tool for coders, but let me see. Let me share my full screen here, kind of show you what it all looks like. Hopefully, there's nothing weird on my desktop. Okay, so this is what anti-gravity looks like. Sort of this just blank space. Again, very, very nerdy. But it's what it's essentially going to do is it's going to write code for me based on a question that I ask it. And it's an agent that will create files, it will rename files, it will edit files, it will do all what like anything you ask of it. So my one of my biggest challenges lately has been let's see, oh, it's trying to X's community notes. So X has this kind of crowdsourced fact checking thing where people can go and add fact checks to story or to posts, and if enough people vote on them, they get appended. It's a really long, complicated thing. But the data is all public, so I can see millions of crowdsourced fact checks that are either public or not public. But it's just a pain in the ass to download. It is like totally a pain, and I think it took me like 2 weeks of tinkering when I first started playing around with this like 2 years ago. Now, if I had anti-gravity at the time, you basically just create an empty folder and you open that folder. So I've got an empty folder that's just called data download. And I open that random folder. Let's go back to my prompts. Here's my prompt where I have some URLs of where, whoops, Daisy, let's get out of there. Uh, on, whoops. It's always fun about these live demonstrations. Let's open it again. Uh, Okay, so I've got my data download and I've got my prompt that basically says, hey, figure out how to download all this community notes data. Then we'll start trying to do some analysis with it. And I give them some of the URLs where it lives. Again, this is something that took me like absolutely forever. So it comes up with its plan. Here's what it's going to do. It's going to create, all these scripts that download all this data. And then it just starts going to work. And it's just generating Python scripts that are going to download all this data and start analyzing all this data for me. And look, it's already generated like its tasks. So here's all of its tasks. It's going to start downloading all this data. It's going to examine the structure and then start preparing the analysis. And so it just does this automatically. Now what you're seeing the agent open up a Chrome window and start reading about community notes. So I have basically given this agent kind of a little bit of freedom to do its own research. And so now it understands the data structure. It's going to see, it's again, this would take a few minutes of work, and if we had more time together, you could actually see it do its job. But I've already experimented on this. Let me see if I can open another one where I've actually done the work. So let's open one where you can actually see all the stuff it did. Um, let's see. Um, doo-doo-doo. There we go. So I asked it the exact same question the other day, and it gave me this. I was trying to see if there were a bunch of bots active in community notes, and I didn't really have a good methodology that I was going to use. I literally just asked it like, "Hey, I'm trying to find out if there's bot activity in community notes. Can you check it out for me?" And like within 5 minutes, it wrote me a bunch of different Python scripts to download all of that data, to analyze all of that data, to analyze the bots. And then it gives me all of these charts, the distribution of what it thinks are the bots, the high activity. This is all like super, super nerdy stuff, but it could be the basis of 20 stories that I write about community notes, and it's something that I did in like 5 minutes with anti-gravity. Now you need like a little bit of background in coding, potentially, just to kind of understand how some of these files are set up. But to be honest, if I didn't know how to code at all, and I opened this and asked, hey, give me a chart of the bots and community notes, here's the URL where it lives at, it would give me a chart like this. And I would just go to like somebody who I knew who's like really good with data and like, hey, can you validate this? Can you validate the stuff that this thing did? And so this is another example of something where I started studying community notes back in 2021. If I had had this tool back then, it did analyses that used to take me a week in 5 minutes. And I could have produced a lot more really great work a lot quicker because I was sort of doing it in my spare time and my downtime. And so, yeah, I'm just like, there's a lot, there seems to be a lot of momentum around anti-gravity and what it can do for investigative journalism. It can parse PDFs. So if you put a PDF into a folder that's, 900 pages long in the worst format you can ever imagine, you open it in anti-gravity and say, hey, parse this PDF into something computer readable. Give me a spreadsheet based on this. It can do that relatively well. For those of you who may know of or have read Matt Waite, he's at Wisconsin, I believe, but he was at the Times for a long time. He's written about anti-gravity for PDF parsing, and it's like the bane of my existence now can take me 5 minutes. So that is a absolute crash course. Sorry for the technical difficulties there, but I just wanted to give you like a taste of these tools, show you kind of what they look like, some advanced use cases, some basic use cases, but generally like my what I always say is just start tinkering. Find a tool that you like and just start tinkering and see what it can do. And follow, yeah, I will send along like all of Poynter's ethics stuff and some courses we have after we get off here.
Oh, it's
Joel,
awesome stuff. Darren had his first question in there. Do any of these not make stuff up if it doesn't know an answer? I feel I can't trust it to pull quotes from a long meeting or get names right. ChatGPT will just fictionalize it.
yeah. So again, these tools are incredibly mysterious. The math behind them is these are prediction machines and they are incredibly mysterious. And so, if you include in your prompt, do not hallucinate any quotes from this, that is actually very, very effective. So I did a Q&A with my friend Ren Laforme, who's the editor here. It was about Gamergate. We had like an hour-long conversation. He turned it into a Q&A and he was trying to use Claude for it. And he dropped our whole transcript in Claude and we started reading and it was making things up. We were like, we did not talk about this. And then I dropped it in again and specifically said, only use content from this transcript, do not hallucinate. And it gave me it perfect. Now, I went back and double checked because the Q&A we had was, 800 words. So I could highlight a quote, check the transcript, highlight a quote, check the transcript. It only took me a few more minutes. Now, it would have taken me a long time to transcribe that and put it into a Q&A if I hadn't otherwise. So, and then Notebook LM will not hallucinate thing like quotes or numbers or things out of documents. So that's generally like the safest in my view for these.
JD commented, JD, if you want to turn your mic on just to clarify, but I often find it's due to poor prompting or over expectation.
Yeah. So like if you just throw a transcript in there and say, you know, give me the top five things that were talked about, depending on which program you use, it doesn't know what criteria makes it the most important. So like you need to define in your prompt what is important to you so that way it can find it. And then so first of all, thank you so much for your presentation. I enjoyed it a lot. I dabble in AI quite a bit and have these conversations with colleagues at at Stony Brook about it. And I'm a frequent, like everyday user of Notebook LM because it does not do the hallucinating that other apps do because you're defining its library. And for colleagues that are skeptical about even Notebook LM or any of the other language models, is that I tell them treat AI like it's a highly skilled temperamental intern, because unless you give it really clear instructions, it doesn't know what you want because it also has never done your job before. So you need to give like really clear instructions, and it will do it as long as the app is able to do it, like the conversation between Gemini and Notebook. It will turn out what you're looking for. It just will take that kind of reinforcing like a person sitting next to you would.
Yeah, exactly. That is a way. Think of any intern you've had. That's exactly it. So like in all of the tools that I built for PolitiFact, the good thing about PolitiFact is they have a very detailed, transparent guide. Here's how we fact check. Blah blah blah. Here's how we pick a claim. Blah blah blah. Here's how we assess sources. Blah blah blah. So I can plug that all in and say, find me all of DeSantis's claims in this piece because I've like JD said, defined very correctly. So thank you for that. That's exactly right.
It just also the one thing. So our program at Stony Brook, we have a Department of Journalism, and then we have a Department of Communication, and our communication program is highly focused in science communication, and I kind of jump between the two of them a lot. And what I've noticed is that because methodology in AI prompting is such an important step, is that it's kind of reinforcing some of the things that newsrooms might have taken for granted in terms of like, well, the methodology is just, how we move material from ideation to publication. But now we need to like write that down and define it when we're using AI and hopefully in our transparency. But in order to really do good AI, you need to be able to define and know how to do the job to get the result you're looking for.
Exactly.
Let's get to George, and then we'll go to Patrice. George, mic on.
Hey, Alex, thanks for blowing my mind for the last 40 minutes. I'm exhausted. My question is this. Could you use LM or some other tool to establish or set up your own newsletter where it would keep you abreast of topics that you want, it to search for? That would be a great asset to me and the class I teach. I teach a class in the changing news industry, and trying to keep up with all that is exhausting. So I'm wondering if there's a way that I can automate that.
So there are several ways you can automate that. So you can, if you pay for ChatGPT, you can create something called a custom GPT, which is like it's a chatbot that is based off of instructions that you've given it. And so you could give it really, really specific instructions of here's the type of news I'd like to see of the day. Here's the generally the sources I like to see it from, blah, blah, blah. You can give it all these and you can set that up and then you would just open ChatGPT and ask it every day, what's the news of the day. Now really advanced, so I actually created a tool that if somebody in my AI channel tags something I call a beat monitor and says at beat monitor pulls from RSS feeds that I've given it all of the important, and it ranks the important AI stories of the day and gives it to them. So like on the very basic side of things, you can just make your own little custom GPT in ChatGPT, or you can create like a really a complex system that's like integrated with Slack. And I did it all with AI in like a day. So I created like a chatbot that does that very quickly. So absolutely, that's like all of the AI guys, that I met, that was the first thing that they were using it for is organizing and giving them like their kind of customized news of the day.
Then I can presumably dump that into LM and it would create decks for me, slide decks.
Uh, Essentially, yeah. I haven't experimented with like because they just I don't know when they added the feature to create the actual slide deck. It used to just be the video that had slides, but try it. I think I'm pretty sure it would. It'll the design looks like the Google design, which to for me, it actually Google has some of my favorite slide designs. So you'd have to customize it if you want to use your own, but yeah, give it a try.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
super interesting.
I'm gonna play with that. Thank you.
Trees.
Thank you, Alex. This has been really, really informative. I feel like I have a much better understanding of like what the strengths and weaknesses of these different tools are now. I have about 15 questions, but I'm going to restrain myself. Um, I have been a bit conservative in my use of AI tools because of a concern of like what's happening with the data that I'm putting into it. Can you talk a little bit about how each of these tools handles the data you put in it and or uses the data that you put in it and like what control you have over that?
Yeah, so you should, in all of these tools, have complete control over turning off data being sent to for it to train the model. Um, you have to like go into the settings. Yeah, so you should here. I so there's some caveats here. So these are big tech companies. What you are putting in there is going to the cloud into a data center somewhere. It is firewalled off apparently, so they cannot read the chats that you're putting in. They say they cannot read the chats that are putting in, and their legal, language says they cannot read the chat they're putting in. But it is there. It is at a place that is not on your computer, and therefore, if you have really sensitive things like foot X-rays, you would not want to put them in there because in the off chance that there's a data leak, it would be out there. So I generally don't trust any AI companies. If you do some research, there's a tool called OLlama. That's O as O llama, like the llama, and it will just run. If you download it, it will run open source models on your computer. So you can say whatever you want to it, and all of that data and all of those chats are on your computer because you have downloaded the algorithm, the LLM to your machine. So, for example, we do a lot of 360 reviews for people who come through Poynter programs. Now, I did some coaching the other day, and I was trying to find connections between my coachees, and so I would never ever want to put in a review ever into something that would go into the cloud. So I downloaded Llama, a model onto my computer, and I was able to analyze some reviews knowing that it was on my machine. So and it's also better for the environment too. If you are querying an open source model on your own computer.
That's helpful to know. Yeah, I also have had like copyright concerns too. Like if I'm want to have or an AI model, you know, give me notes from something that like I don't have copyright ownership of. Like, am I violating copyright by uploading these things? So I'll
We
check
don't
out.
quite know yet. Yeah, I mean the court's still considering so much of that, but it is seeming like and if you, I'm sure you all are familiar with Jeff Jarvis. He's like big on uh, these AI should be able to suck up whatever they want online because it's just like a person learning sort of, which is, it is a way of looking at it. But yeah, that's a complicated subject and something that I get asked about all the time. And I'm just like, courts are considering it. It's tough.
If you get a summary of Sarasota City Council meeting off of YouTube video, Google, any copyright issues there, you're going to get harassed by Google for writing a story from a summary of notes gathered from a YouTube video of Sarasota City Council.
You shouldn't, and because Notebook LM is a Google tool, so
Uh,
it didn't used to be, but they bought it a while back.
okay. Anybody else? Shout out. Good stuff. Steven.
I have a, kind of a tangential question. The few times I've kind of brought AI into like my classrooms, I met with howls from my students saying, "How can you be using AI? What are you doing here? What are you teaching us?" And kind of related to that, like think about like all the water that it's using up and the environmental impacts from this stuff. Like how kind of like shaming me until finally I'm
Mhm.
like kind of turning red. I'm like, okay, I'll reconsider my usage of AI. Like, how would you respond to that?
So this is something I ran into in my newsroom. I think I'm getting an echo, so if you could mute while I, yeah, okay, yeah. For some reason, I was getting an echo back from your screen, but when I built this PolitiFact fact checking tool, we have a lot of young fact checkers, and they were like, "I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it. Every time I send a query, it dumps 5 bottles of water out." Now, the first thing is these tools and the data centers themselves are getting more efficient, so it's using less energy. Um, there's conflicting evidence about how much energy a query costs. Now, a student isn't going to really care too much about the nuance of it. You know what I mean? So what I try to tell them is that there is not a great answer for this, but if you are able to use local models on your own computer, that's fine for the environment. Start there. If you are able to develop really good prompts, like what JD was talking about, and you only have to ask one time, that's basically like, Googling something for a story, or watching a minute of Netflix. I don't want to be like basically what I told the young reporters was, "Oh, I ride my bike. I ride my bike to work, so I try to offset my use." And they were like, "Oh, they didn't like that." So that was not a good answer. But what I try to tell them is like, if you use it efficiently, you are you are having the same or less impact than all of like crazy streaming that I would have to do my job before I was using some of these tools. And so that's the way I try to approach that. But I don't have a good answer because the reporters still don't want to use the tool, and they don't trust it. I think as we get more and better research on the specific impacts, it'll maybe get a little bit easier to have those discussions, but it's just there's overwhelmingly negative coverage, much of it deserved on this topic. So I feel for you. I just visited my niece and nephew who are 17 and 18, and they think I'm like the devil's because of this.
JD.
Yeah, I get into this kind of, Stephen, I get in the same kind of conversation with my students too. And in our graduate journalism program, we have a generative AI statement, or rather an AI statement that does not allow generative AI, but it allows students to explore some of the planning processes that we had, talked about in the last hour. And when we get into these conversations about AI, I hear about very similar problems that you expressed, Stephen. And the reality is that the cat is out of the bag, and you cannot make a browser search anymore without using AI to some degree. Just a regular Google search will also prompt its AI, whether you use it or not. So it is inevitable. We're at the point of whether you're using it knowledgeably or not, you're already using AI. So you might as well use it correctly is kind of the way that I explain it to my students.
I just have to quote the Matrix there. It is inevitable,
It
Mister.
is inevitable. Exactly. Thank you for getting that.
Anybody else? Alex, how are we able to stay in contact with you? When are we bothering you, and are we not bothering you?
Just my email's alex@poynter.org. You're never bothering me. I actually before I got on this, there's a guy at USA Today who I have a 97 email chain with who he asks me every question that pops into his head. And I generally try to make myself very available. And so if you have a question or if you're doing something really cool and you want to share it, please let me know. I'm generally pretty reachable.